80% of kids under 16 want to be a YouTuber when they grow up or a social media creator, which is just an insane statistic.
I have the pleasure of welcoming Brandon B. Where did it begin, the tech side of it?
I stole my brother's iPod and downloaded an app on it, which allowed you to place very basic visual effects. I just filmed like the worst, crappiest video in the world, showed all of my family, and they all made out like it was the biggest, coolest, most amazing thing in the world. And that singular moment of entertaining people and creating something that they truly didn't know how it was made was what ignited the fire. I'd spend every weekend I could just watching YouTube tutorials every evening after school. All my other friends would be like playing sports or doing anything outside, and I'd lock myself in a room teaching myself software. What we were filming on iPhones and editing on crappy laptops, we were getting between 30, 40, 50 million views a week from that content. Before we knew it, I had this insane team of social elites. In our first year, we got something like 2.5 billion views from just such an incredible team of people who really knew what their craft was and how to execute. I'm not in this game for the money. I'm not money driven. I am complete happiness driven. I do things that I'm excited about. And my much longer term vision and much longer term goal is I want our studio to be creating Netflix and Disney and Amazon Prime shows.
How can we sort of stress to people, like, you can turn this into a legitimate, profitable business?
I don't even know if I want to push that message out to people.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, the Roundtable Podcast. I have the pleasure of welcoming such an awesome guy, by the way, straight off the bat. First time we met was at a red carpet event. Really cool guy, mutual friend Benji of ours, keeps singing your praises. And I was like, we just got to get you on. And you're doing awesome things. So Brandon B, thanks so much for being on the podcast, dude.
Oh, mate, what a lovely intro. That what a warm, fuzzy feeling I've got. I can't wait to jump in right now. Thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, look, the pleasure's all mine. We both Paul and I have been really excited to get you on because, firstly, a lot of these questions and what we're going to talk about is, I'm not going to lie, it's for us to learn as well, because what you're doing at the moment, we sit there watching your content thinking, how have you done that? And how and how is it popping? So we're going to learn all about what you're doing. But before we do, for anyone that is new to you, can you just give us that sort of wide angle, that 30-second overview of who you are and what you do?
Nice. So I'm Brandon B, internet wizard, create these cool, fun visual effect videos. And we try to trick our audience of people we've got online by trying to create as crazy and as big a video as possible. So that's sort of my one half myself. And then the other half is my studio arm. So I guess the commercial side of me. So I also run Studio B, which is our production house. And then also one of the founders of EMG, which is the agency arm.
Dude, you're doing so much. You're everywhere. And if you haven't checked out Brandon, go check him out on the socials. But where did this all start? Was this foreseen? Did you know that you're going to end up going into kind of this social creation? Like, take us a little bit back. And what I will say, I know Tom has tucked you in nicely there, mate. If you want to raise that up and move it out of the way,
It's quite cozy. Thank you, Tom. I'm enjoying it
tucked
here.
You in.
No, I like it, Tom.
There we go.
Yeah,
nice,
a little bit of a stretch.
Nice and tight.
Yeah.
The son of Elvis. But dude, where did it all begin?
Go on. I'll take you to the start of, I guess, when the ignition in my belly started. It was when I was 12, and I stole my brother's iPod and downloaded an app on it, which allowed you to place very basic visual effects inside of videos that you shot. And I just filmed like the worst, crappiest video in the world, and then showed all of my family, and they all made out like it was the biggest, coolest, most amazing thing in the world. And that singular moment of entertaining people and creating something that they truly didn't know how it was made was what ignited the fire.
So has that always been in you, that sort of creative side? And can you just give us an age range? Sort of talk us through when this really started coming out. Like, were you at school so people can kind of get a gist?
Yeah, so that moment was when I was 12, but even prior to that, every job that I always told people I wanted to do was always centered around entertaining people. So originally I wanted to be an actor, which I think you could say no surprise. Then I wanted to be a chef at one point, and then a magician. Like, all of those jobs centered around entertaining people. Like, I've always had that thrill of making other people laugh and smile. And then even at school, like, I've always been the class clown. It was just always became very natural to me because that's where I got my kick of dopamine from. So when I found and discovered this visual effect thing, and I could create these magic videos inside of a computer, learn this really advanced software that no one had even heard of before, and spend my weekends perfecting this craft, I basically tripled down on it and spent every second I could building it and making it better. Eventually, when I was around 15, 16, I managed to start getting work experience at a production company where I actually learned how content was made professionally, not just, scrappy old Brandon in his bedroom on some dodgy version of After Effects that I downloaded. It was an actual team of people, a group of creatives that were all working for the single goal, which was creating the best content possible.
Yeah. So have you always been techie? Because what I just want to quickly tap into so the audience can kind of really understand where you were, especially with like your learning ability. Was this something you were quite academic? Or were you self-taught? Because all of this stuff that we have, apps, software, I mean, we were talking about cameras there. For me, tech and really knowing, look, I could learn it, but it's not like my go-to. Has this always been something that's really interested you from an early age, or were you self-taught? Was this learned at school? Did you explore, like where did it begin, the tech side of it?
Yeah, so luckily I started learning really young. I feel like when you're young, you just pick things up way quicker. And from the age of 12, I started learning software called After Effects, which is like an industry standard software. Me and my team still use it today to create our content. And I'd spend every weekend I could just watching YouTube tutorials every evening after school. And I would do nothing else except that. All my other friends would be like playing sports or doing anything outside. And I'd lock myself in a room teaching myself software.
It's crazy. Do you know what? I'm just going to relate this. So I used to go to school with Conor Maynard, and he would do exactly the same thing. When we would all go out playing football, or we'd go out and we start, doing adventurous things, he was always creating content. And we didn't even call it content back there, and I'm older than you, but he was always creating the videos. And then I suppose really, if we look back, you can kind of see that this is always going to happen. So when did things really start to take off? And how did sort of your media career and sort of developing videos, content creation, when did that really sort of take off?
Yeah, so after I started working at Sassy, which was the TV production company, from the ages of like 16 to 19, 20, I was obsessed with creating content for people to consume, enjoy, entertain. Then from that point onwards, I was into the whole TV thing, but I was very aware the whole time that I personally wasn't watching TV. So I was a part of this huge pipeline of creators putting their heart and soul into these projects. And the final output, me as a consumer, wasn't even watching, which kind of sucked. But from the age of 12, ever since I started learning After Effects, this thing that I was obsessed with, which was YouTube. So whilst I was working at Sassy, one day these two guys came in called Woody and Knightley, and they were content creators, and I was like blown away when I met them because they had 50,000 followers. Couldn't believe it. To me at the time, I was working with like David Walliams on shoots, and I even got to do like red carpet events with like Will Smith and The Rock, and it was like incredible and so flashy. But the fact that I'd met two guys who had built up an audience online, that was by far the biggest and most exciting thing in my world.
Yeah.
So as soon as I could, I just offered to shoot with them for free at the start. I was like, I'll do anything to come and work with you guys and start making social content. And we did it. And then after work, every evening, as often as we could, I try and go down to there, shoot content. On the weekends as well, we'd just shoot as much as we could. And what we were filming on iPhones and editing on crappy laptops, we were getting between 30, 40, 50 million views a week from that content compared to the stuff that I was making in TV, which, as we know in advertising, you're paid per clip. It's not people watching it because they're entertained by this content. And that social ignition started. And from that point onwards, I've been obsessed.
That's crazy. So did you go through the normal education system? Did you go through college? Did you learn this at uni, or was this kind of, are you majority sort of self-taught?
Majority self-taught. I've never really enjoyed school. I've definitely always struggled in a classroom. The environment was never for me. So as soon as I could, I just sort of dropped out of school, got my GCSEs, sort of did the level that you needed to get through. And then after that, started working.
That's insane. I love it. I mean, sitting here listening to you talk, and you're 23. So for anyone that doesn't know, you're 23. You're doing incredible things at such a young age, and like we were saying off camera, basically you're living your dream. I mean, you are living a playground career basically, which is insane. I think most people want that. And it's funny because we're in a world now where I think most people, especially if I ask my 9-year-old son, when I say to him, although he's involved in a lot of what I do, still now if I ask him what do you want to do, he's like, I want to be a YouTuber.
Nice.
But what's really cool is he's got more of a business mindset, and we were talking off camera about kind of bringing that business mindset into socials, because there is a huge chance to build a brand and a business. You ended up building this business that you have today. Can you kind of just give us a little bit of an insight to when you really saw that this could be a money generator? Like, I need to monetize this.
So it came less out of needing and more like organically, it just kind of happened. So we launched the Brand and Bee brand. Oh, I say we, at the start it was just me. So I launched the Brand and Bee brand. I think I got it to maybe a few million on my own, maybe between 2 and 3. And at that point I was like, cool, it's time to scale. It's time to actually grow this. There's only one way we can make this channel bigger, and it's by making either more content or better content. And the only way to do that is by bringing more people. And, you know, I was only so good at visual effects, so there's only so much that I could edit. And I was only so good at producing a video, so there was only so much that I could actually scale into the content. So one by one, where I found the need for someone within the process, I hired them. It alleviated my time so I could focus on the things I was really good at, whilst I then brought in like experts within those specific fields. One of my like favorite hires was very early on at the start, which was someone I'd been working with at the old production company. We were both runners at the same time, and then I went onto the technical side, and then she became a producer at the production company, and we always worked together so well. So when I left, I always had it in the back of my head. I actually, before I even had a studio, I called her up and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Here's the vision. Come and join me on this crazy journey. And thankfully she did. And she's helped me craft this incredible production team that we've got at the studios. And from that, we just, before we knew it, had this insane team of social elites. In our first year, we got something like 2.5 billion views from just such an incredible team of people who really knew what their craft was and how to execute. And then from that point onwards, brands that we worked with started coming to us and saying, hey, we love the videos you make. We love the brand collaborations that we do together. But we want you to create videos for us that have the brand's face on rather than my specific face. So basically using our team and our facilities and what we've created and what we know and how to create viral content, but putting that into brands content. So we started doing it job by job, and then we slowly started to see that there was like this huge need for a production company that specializes in creating viral content. Our grassroots are in social media. It's how to get viral organic growth. So we partnered that knowledge with everything that we learned from working in the TV production side of, you know, how to operate and facilitate an actual production company, and join those two babies up to create our offering, which is Studio B.
I love it. You're 23. Listen to the way that you're talking. Like you execute so well. And I am going to come on to the people that you're around, because the way that you're delivering your message and talking about business, you do sound like you've already kind of had in you a bit of entrepreneurship business mindset. Because it's, as we were talking, being a social content creator, we can tell the difference between people who are disconnected, but with a business sort of intent of let's build this into something great, you know, build a team out and let's all benefit, from someone who perhaps suffers from, as we were saying, like social anxiety, you know, and really kind of getting too consumed. So let's take it in that direction. How have you experienced, you know, being a big content creator? Have you had days that maybe you're fed up, you know, like keeping up appearances, or are you able to create more than you're a consumer? Like how do you find it sort of mentally?
So people ask me all the time, like they always say, I want to get into content creation. I want to be a YouTuber. I think the statistic is somewhere along the lines of 80% of kids under 16 want to be a YouTuber when they grow up, or a social media creator, which is just an insane statistic. Like that's huge, bigger than you know, singers, actors, astronauts, like any of these, I guess, traditional mainstream career paths that you would have thought 15 years ago would have been within that 80% mark. And the first thing I always say to people when they say they want to get into this space is, do you want to do this career path more than anything in the world? Yeah. Like, if you weren't earning money and everyone told you that the stuff you were creating was terrible, you had no support from anyone, do you still need to create content with every bone in your body? And if the answer isn't yes, this isn't the career path for you. Yeah. Being a creator looks like one of the sexiest and most exciting jobs in the world, but it's actually one of the hardest grinds, working 7 days a week. If you're awake, you are working, you're around the clock. And the space that you're in is evolving quicker than any other industry that I've ever seen. Yeah. So it is a really, really hard industry that you need to put blood, sweat, and tears into every single moment to actually break through. There's something like 50 million active content creators as of right now, 2 million of which are doing it as a full-time job. That means you are up against such a vast number of people to try and get the smallest tiny breakthrough you can.
Yeah.
If you are prepared to put everything you've got into doing it because there is no other option, then you'll succeed.
Oh, mate, I will totally agree. It moves fast. I mean, the thing is, even when, and we're going to go into comparison, but even when you're looking at other creators, so if someone is watching this thinking, I want to be a social content creator, I can't second enough that it moves so quick, but you can't help but see other people who are adapting and using like software and stuff like this, and the videos look insane. And then I think people go into comparison and they're like, my videos need to just go to a new level. And I'm caught in between two things here. Do you try and really level up your content, or do you just stick with consistency and putting out good value? And I suppose it depends on what content creator you are, but that is a feeling of overwhelm when you're watching too many other people. And what would your advice be if people are opening up their phones and the apps and kind of thinking, well, I'm not like that. I'm not doing it like that. I can't keep up. What would you say to those?
So it's really interesting. So I've just been recommended this book that I'm halfway through. It's called The Lean Startup. And essentially from where I'm at the moment, the whole picture of what the Lean Startup is about, it's a movement and it describes how to launch your startup and make sure that your product is, valuable and people want to buy it and are interested in it. And I've drawn a lot of similarities between, I guess, a traditional product-based company, if you've got a software or an app, to us content creators. And the single thing that they keep talking about is an MVP, a minimum viable product. And instead of sitting there for 6 months, a year, 2 years, trying to perfect one piece of content or making sure that you're over-engineering every single inch of a piece of content or something you're trying to do, just start creating, start uploading volume, and then learn throughout that process.
Yeah.
Iterate as you create, keep creating more and more content until eventually, throughout that 2-year period of creating, you'll get way further than you would have with just working on one piece.
Yeah, I'd second that. But that goes for anything as well. Like even in business, I'm finding more and more, I do a lot of live streaming. And one of the things that I'm finding most is people are asking, what do I invest in? How do I make money? How do I do this? Should I do this? And I find that we're going into a world where everyone's asking someone else for the answer for their own solution, especially financially. When someone says, what do I invest in? No one else can answer someone else. So I do agree. You just have to start. Like there's no answer. And I do think learning along the way. I want to get your opinion on something that Paul and I have been talking a lot about this recently. I have a real gripe with this. Podcasting, I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the best sort of like social content that we can do. We can have chats, we can offer value throughout. And I'm seeing a lot of podcasters now that are bringing on stories and individuals sharing horrific stories, whether it be through violence, through sexual content and stuff like this. What's your thought on using platforms that I would like to think we're going to use it as value, learn and build businesses? What do you think on the flip side, the darker side of sharing stories on socials?
Oh God, I think you could spin it in in a million different ways. One, devil's advocate argument of against what you're saying is, I'm sure there are so many people out there who do have a dark story, but they feel so alone and they feel like no one else understands them. And by having those platforms for allowing those people to speak and share their experiences, it allows other people to feel like they're not alone in this world. And I guess there's comfort in numbers. But I do agree. I think one of my favorite a saying is that you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. And I believe that even stretches out to the podcasts you listen to and just daily, the things that you let your brain intake. Yeah. So I love listening to Gary Vee because he's always shouting the correct things. Yeah. So I'm inhaling all of them and just constantly refining my craft. Stephen Bartlett's another one. I love listening to his stuff and listening to the inspiring people he has on his podcasts. So you could personally choose to listen to more negative things or audio books I love as well, because I think it's just an opportunity to learn constantly. Yeah. I actually have got to a point where I love journey times and traveling, because it means I can whack on an audio book, suddenly spending half an hour driving or traveling, and I've just learned 3 new skills that I can go and implement into the company the next day.
Yeah. It's like you're sat next to the person.
It's brilliant.
I love Audible. I'm a big fan of Audible, but I think social circles plays such a underestimated part of our journey. And that's certainly a message I'm trying to push on more, is that the people that you spend time with will really determine kind of the path that you take. And that's the two sides to socials. I love socials. I love the content creation side of it. But I mean, live streaming is a perfect example. You can go on live stream and you will have the strangest people come on there. And you think you've got such a chance to add value, to earn money, which we'll come on to, and to really get a great message out there. I think people really need to look at the people that they're spending time with, because I think that's where people end up going down these dark paths, is they might not have the right people around, and we're in a world where we're connecting with so many. So how has your social circle sort of played a part to where you are today and the team that you have?
I've got so lucky with just the most incredible group of friends. Like, all of my best friends are absolutely killing it in their individual paths and individual worlds. And I guess seeing how much they're killing it and what they're doing has then helped motivate and push me even further. I couldn't be more grateful for the group I've got around me. Benji, who's my business partner and best friend, is absolutely smashing his world. He's an inspiration and a mentor to me. I call him probably every night, asking for advice about something different, and we just chat for hours. Same for my whole circle. Gab's another one of my business partners. Ollie, Josh, my best friends growing up. Those are the people that I surround myself with constantly, because they are helping me grow and build and refine. And it's been incredible just watching each of them on their own individual journeys absolutely killing it.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it? Like, if you've got people around you who are ambitious, self-driven, it really does rub off. So what would be the answer to anyone watching who, I always use this example, if you live in the back of nowhere and you haven't got a lot of motivation around you, or there's not a lot of people who are really aspiring for more, where does someone go? So that individual who's kind of thinking, I really want to do more, I've got this fire in my belly, but I just know I'm not in the right area. What would you say to those?
God, it's hard. It's one of those ones, like, I definitely don't have all the answers to this, because I think anyone who's in this situation probably has such a unique set of problems. But I'm going to pull something out I've heard Gary Vee say before: whack some headphones on and just constantly surround yourself with positive podcasts, and try and put as much positive reinforcement out there in surrounding yourself as possible. But I completely understand how that's so much easier said than done. And for some people, they're in scenarios and situations where it is a real struggle just to pull themselves out of. But any step that you can take, even if it helps 5% over a long period of time, will make a big difference. Something I heard that, I guess if we're going on like mindset, which I love, people don't realize how damaging thoughts are to your everyday action. So a triangle that was painted out to me, which kind of changed my life and how I think about things, and which is now why I'm so passionate about like manifestation and affirmations and all of this positive stuff, is thoughts. And anything you think, your thoughts leads to emotion. So you know you have a thought, that thought creates an emotion. That emotion that you've now created creates an action. And that action you do creates another thought. So you have a negative thought, which then leads on and gives you a negative emotion. That negative emotion then leads you to create a negative action. It then forces you to derail your life and puts you off track and potentially making decisions that you don't want, which then gives you another negative thought. And it's a self-perpetual cycle, and it just keeps going forever and ever and ever until you just keep leading yourself down that negative trap. Whereas if you keep filling your head with positive thoughts as much as you can, surround yourself with uplifting, optimistic people, it's the opposite. You have positive thought, which leads to a positive emotion, which leads to a positive action, and it keeps going and going round in circles until eventually you can break through as best as you can, and try and be in that sort of positive surroundings as much as possible.
Oh, mate, I totally agree. This podcast is sponsored by paulstapleton.co.uk, offering expert services in one-to-one mentorship. If you are looking for business consultancy, property sourcing training, social media advice, or sales negotiating, then this is the place to educate yourself. I suppose my circles, I have a total zero tolerance to negativity. So I would say my upbringing had some pretty negative people in it when I was sort of coming up. And what I learned was that without realizing, when I was around quite negative people, very different people that I'm around now, I couldn't even see that I was becoming one of them. And when I was told I was becoming one of, these individuals that I was hanging around with, I could never see it. And I was almost in denial. And what I've learned over time is that the people that I'm around now, I also have the option to choose who I'm around. That's one thing I really want to pass on, is there is no excuses. If you're around people who gossip, negative, we don't have to be around those people. But the mindset really does change when you're around people who are supportive, uplifting. You were talking about Benji there. It just drives you forward. And this journey's hard, isn't it? Like entrepreneurship, just for anyone watching, is tough, isn't it? Like this is, and especially in content creation. Let's talk about your vision. So we're talking about the social world moving very fast. There's a lot of opportunity to make money. How are you going to stay ahead of the game? Because that's something I'm always looking at, is that things are moving really quick. How do I stay in a position where I can always stay ahead of the game so I don't get left behind?
So one of my favorite things in the world that I've discovered is I love like building strategies. It seems to be one of my funnest and favorite things to do. I guess it kind of loops back into this like optimistic manifestation world where I just get so much pleasure and joy out planning for the future and all the incredible things that we're going to be doing. For me, all of my active movements are less financially driven and more, what do I want to be doing? What's going to make me jump out of bed every morning? What's going to make me happiest? I'm not in this game for the money. I'm not money driven. I am complete happiness driven. I do things that I'm excited about. And my much longer term vision and much longer term goal is I want our studio to be creating Netflix and Disney and Amazon Prime shows. That's the longer term vision. Creating feature films, creating the next Squid Games, creating the next Stranger Things. That's the bigger picture for me, because that excites me so much. And I know how much joy I get out of watching those series and how much pleasure it brings to my life. So the idea that we could be doing that at scale to millions, if not billions of people, for me is the coolest thing in the world. That's the big picture. And then after that, trying to go on to build a theme park. But that's another conversation. But yeah, my focus is working out, cool, that's where the goal is. What are the steps one by one I need to do in order to get there? Luckily, because I love technology so much, I so tapped into what new pieces of tech that we can use to help optimize our day-to-day processes so we can try and get the most out of what we are doing. So we're like pushing ourselves forwards, and that's probably why we've able to find these things a lot quicker than most and push our company forward so much, which has been awesome. But yeah, for me, it's less about, how do we make sure that the company's thriving from a financial point, but how do we make sure that the company gets to our mission, which is creating the big blockbusters?
I love the big goals, but I have a counter question which I've often asked myself, and I think I'd be okay. I think I've positioned myself well enough offline to continue as normal. But my question to you is, and this has come up many times, with the volatility around social media and never knowing what platform's going to close, a new one opens, how do you feel about if social media, and let's say YouTube and TikTok and Instagram were to be wiped out? Very unlikely, but if it were, how does the business model look like? Have you ever thought about that? Because I know a lot of people ask that question, is thinking, if my online presence was to disappear today, do I still earn money? Does everything still function? Have you ever thought about that, and what are your thoughts?
So I don't, the chances are all of them closing down at the same time is almost zero. There will always be another platform. But my thoughts with individual platforms closing down or the social landscape changing is, I know that if you are a successful content creator, you have got there because you are so used to evolving so quickly. I know that before any change that could possibly come up, we will be ready and we'll be prepared and we'll have another station that we can fire from. I'd say as a business, we're very well diversified, even between the creator brand, the studio brand, and then the agency brand, which are three separate teams that sort of run all side by side and all push and help each other. They all do run off of the same thing, which is social media. But the reason we're doubling, tripling down on the social world is because still it is so undersaturated. There are so few big corporate agencies there in the space who are doing it well, that have the training within specifically creating organic viral content. So I'm not worried about social media being gone tomorrow. I still believe that the industry is a tenth of what it will be. And the reason I say that is because I always look back to where I was, which was in TV, and the cost per view of spending in TV versus social. And when you're advertising on TV, everyone's fast forwarding or watching their phone or making a tea. No one's actually consuming the content. Whereas when you advertise on social, you have analytics, you have pixel tracking, so you know exactly who's bought after seeing your advert. You have swipe up links. You can build a collection of data off the back of the viewers watching the content. There is so much you can do with social advertising, yet for some reason it is still far cheaper than any other medium. So I believe not only will it be as expensive, like the same price as TV, but it will go over. It will become the most expensive medium because it is by far the best.
So you still think it's really early days, which is exciting. I like
think
hearing
we're
that.
so early on this journey.
I like hearing that because I'm always wondering, should I be keeping an eye on other platforms? Because at the end of the day, running multiple platforms, let's call it what it is tiring. Like, especially if you haven't got a full team, because a lot of people watching this will be thinking, I'd love to have a team. But at the moment, you know what it's like. In the beginning, you're the CEO, you're the editor, you're the marketer, you're the salesman, you're the cleaner, everything. You do all the roles. And it's tiring to then think, oh, I've got to think what the next up and coming platforms are. So if it's still early days, I'm happy to hear that. And I'll continue with the platforms I'm on. Now, I really want to sort of hit home on this. I've started to see it certainly off of TikTok. And I know so many people are still in disbelief or can't quite get their heads around the monetizing of social media because it takes effort. So when you're putting out lots of content, I've been there in the early days where I'm thinking, why am I putting out content? Like, I'm not getting anything back. But, you know, you have off days. But when you do monetize, just for people watching, it is a lucrative industry, isn't it? Like, it can become your full-time job if you really go at it and you really enjoy it and you really want to sort of make a business out of it. I don't think that message is truly out there, which I'm going to tie into something else afterwards. But how can we sort of stress to people, like, you can turn this into a legitimate, profitable business?
I don't even know if I want to push that message out to people. Yes, it is possible, but for the vast majority, it's not. Yeah. And I don't want people jumping into the world of social thinking it is some beautiful dream that they become an overnight millionaire. It is such a hard grind and graft that you've got to be obsessed with to make it work. Even people like us who have been going 3 years, we are still putting everything back into the content because we love it. Yeah. And we want to scale and we want to grow further. And to become a big creator, it's what you have to do. I think the best way as a creator you can make money is by setting up other businesses, understanding what your value is and understanding the specific skills that you've taught yourself and you've learned, how you can use that to sell to brands and how you can use that to collaborate with big commercial partners. From being a content creator alone, obviously there are the 0.1% of examples that write off this rule, but you will not become a millionaire overnight. Yeah. It is a long graft of years and years of putting work into finally getting the output. A good example is Woody and Knightley, the guys I used to work with. It took them like 5 years of uploading social media content until they earned a penny off social media. Yeah. And then after that, it took them in total 8 years until they were actually doing it full time, where they could afford to pay themselves properly. So it is a really, really long, hard grind. But if you're obsessed with it more than you're obsessed with anything else in your life, you will succeed.
Yeah. See, I want to pick that apart because, like any business, it's consistency, discipline, routine, structure. We spoke about social circles. You've got to have people around you to keep going. And I've always passed on the message that I'm starting to experience the brand deals in pieces now and stuff like that. So you can see what happens. But within that, I'm always pushing the message of your positioning. So for example, you just hit the nail on the head, is about setting a business up from it. So using an audience, we were talking about, once you've developed an audience, it's like an obligation to show up. And I don't think enough people realize that yet. You know, there's been times where I've gone to set up a live and I've thought, I can't be asked to do the live. But people follow you. Isn't it weird that as a content creator, you think about what you're doing, but you actually forget that you've got all these individual people that are watching you because they want to see your content. And I think that's one, a responsibility, but I do really feel that people need to approach social media as a whole, whatever platform, with a business mindset of setting up something bigger beyond it, as you were talking about having these businesses. How can people convert socials into a business? Because that is a question that comes up all the time. I'm starting to create content. I'm on all these platforms. And now what? Like, what industry do I go into? Have you got any advice on that?
It's so specific to the individual and I guess what their loves are, but I would keep it to things that they know and they love. Work out where there is a gap in the market of a specific skill or expertise that they found that nobody else is activating on. So for, I don't know, maybe a makeup creator, it might be focusing on coming up with some sort of service that through some point of the pipeline of e-commerce, they help either order or pick, pack and deliver, or actually creating their own makeup set, whatever it is surrounding it. Come up with an area of expertise that you have. For me, that was production. I had a TV background working in production companies. I just understood how a production company worked and understood social. So I combined those two things together. Find what that very specific thing is for you and then activate it.
Yeah. And how do you really know what works? So when you're creating content, I mean, you've only got to look at your content and I can't say that I haven't watched a video of yours and without looking at the likes or the views or anything like that, you almost know it's going to pop because you're watching the video opposed to seeing the data, especially if you are creating content already. You know, you're having a look at what other people are able to achieve. But when you're watching your videos, do you ever look at other people and seeing what works? And would you say to other people who are going to create content, research what's working, put your own spin on it? Like, how do you sort of know what's going to work? Or do you just create stuff that comes off the top of your head?
Yeah, definitely. I always recommend to people looking around at the industry, do market research. You would in any other sector, so why not do it as a content creator? Find out what other people are getting success from. I like to try and pull from as many different content sources as possible and bring them into one little baby. One of my favorite brainstorming tools at the moment is mindlessly flicking through TikTok or shorts or reels, and then finding a frame or the first second of a video that hooks me. So for example, one that we saw a couple of months ago was someone holding a big shard of ice, and then they were throwing it on the floor and then the ice cracked. And we thought, wow, that's a very gripping opening of a video. Wonder what we could do differently. So all we took was the science of that very first second. We thought, great, we'll hold a piece of ice. Let's rewrite the rest of the video. Let's come up with some bold, big, unique twists that we can do. And the output that we ended up doing was a version where as the ice dropped, instead of the ice cracking, the floor cracked. And then the floor cracked all the way through. And we shot a second version where we shot it in Trafalgar Square and the big ice cream plinth then falls into the water beneath us. So we turned what was a very simple, quick, organic video, suddenly turned it into this big viral piece of content that we created with our own spin on it, just from using the feed as an inspiration for our next content idea.
You love it, don't you? I can just tell everything about you. You absolutely love it. And that's why the content really works. I think someone like you who is putting out this like really creative content, you can see that it really comes from you, and like, because so much planning goes into this, doesn't it? I don't think people realize the behind the scenes, the thought process, the minor details, the camera setup. And I do think maybe we watch it thinking, I can nail that.
Yeah.
But there's so much that goes in behind the scenes, isn't there?
Yeah,
like,
no,
I can hear it.
I'd love to talk about behind the scenes for a second, because
Let's do it.
Everything that I do, none of it would be possible without the insane people we have working in the team. I'm surrounded by some of the most creative geniuses that I've ever met in my life, and I'm so proud to say that they're a part of this thing that we're building all together. And because of everyone who's around and everyone putting their heart and soul into the stuff that we create, we've been able to do these incredible activations. I'll go for one of my favorite examples. We were doing a video for Pixar. And it was the first time we'd ever worked with Pixar, and we wanted to do something what's called a previs. And a previs is basically an early version of your animation, essentially a storyboard, so you can give the client an idea of what the final result is going to look like before you start making all of it. So I brought on one of our junior VFX artists, and I said, would you mind doing this previs? Just make it very bad. I want you to make it in like a day so we can send it to the client and say, this is what the final version will look like after we start working on it. So I gave it to him on Friday, and then Monday morning I came in and said, oh, can I check out that previs? And he goes, well, actually, I didn't really do a previs. I just started making the actual video, and I've spent all weekend doing it. So he spent all of Friday, his own Saturday, his own Sunday, working on this piece of content. And then the final video that he showed me on the Monday was this insane animation that he'd put his blood, sweat, and tears in. And because of that, I said to him, hey, we're not going to give this to one of our senior artists. This is your baby to now work on. And he was the person that got to create this huge Pixar activation, which without having that pure passion and excitement for the craft, we wouldn't have got it to the standard that we did.
Oh, mate, I love this. And I want to bring up a point, because the way that you're talking with your team, I just want to address something here. This is a chance for me to answer like a question by the way you've been talking. So I did a video, which was my biggest video, which was last one in, first one out. And I just want to address something here, because the way that you're talking about your team is exactly the way that I see everything going forward, especially with businesses. So I talked about last one in, first one out in the employed world, because I've done just shy of 10 years.
Last one in, first one out. That's the message, to be the last one in.
Last one in, first one out.
Yeah.
And the message behind that is, for clarification, is if you're in a world where you're not being appreciated, valued, there's not a lot of respect. It all comes down to pay packet. You can talk, people who are earning a higher pay packet can talk down to people in this old school business. It's not acceptable. But building new businesses where people are team members opposed to employees, leaders rather than managers. And my message about last one in, first one out, I had in reply, well, is that what you would expect from your employees? Well, firstly, they're not employees. And I'm always looking to build something where everyone just loves it. Like the spirit of building a business where they just can't wait to get involved. And like you said, this guy who's created this, this content, and you're like, dude, own it, like benefit from this. And I love that. And that's the way forward, opposed to cracking the whip. So I love the fact that you're wanting to like build out this incredible team. But there will be people sitting here watching thinking, Brandon, I love what you're saying, mate. I'm a one-man band. How can I afford a team? How do I get these experts in? Like, where did that start for you? Because finding the right people is hard. So how did you actually, one, go about finding the right people? And then obviously, how do you go about paying them if you're a startup? How does that happen?
I wish I had, and I still wish I had the answers to how to have a perfect streak of hiring. I wish I could say we've had a perfect streak. We've got so incredibly lucky. My first 2 hires are still 2 people in the company that I cherish more than anything. And that was just pure luck. I put a message out on my Instagram, and the first person replying, the second one who's my social media manager, is actually Benji's brother.
Cool.
So I got so lucky with those first 2. Third one was Molly, our producer, who I brought from the TV space. And then from there, it's just been job ads, getting in a room with people and seeing if we buy into each other. When I'm doing the interviews, I try and sort of go through the company vision, go through the company plan, and if the way I'm speaking about the projects that we are planning on doing, I can see ignites a fire in your belly, then you're hired. I don't really care about GCSE grades or A-level grades or degree grades. I don't care about any form of standard education. The thing that I need to see for me to hire you is A, do you love social media? And B, are you more passionate about this space than anything else going on? I want to know that there is a specific craft that you love and are obsessed with. It can be art deck. It can be VFX. It can be writing. It can be producing. It doesn't matter what it is, but you just need to love something and be so passionate about it. And that's the really special thing about what we've got at the studio is a team of people that are built and sort of drawn together based off of our passion for stuff. We're all a bunch of geeks, we're all a bunch of nerds, and I love it to my core and my soul. We all obsess over the details of films and TV series. And when we catch up after the weekends about things we've seen, and I hear everyone's debates and discussions, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And it's incredible that we've just built a collection of people that all share the same goal, mission, and drive.
Sounds like a happy environment, mate. I mean, it sounds like an absolute buzz. With people who are looking to start socials or whatever it might be, you're getting their face out there, stepping out the comfort zone, and maybe someone's really creative. What do you focus on first? Because this is something I suppose is asked quite a lot. Do I need to make sure I get the right camera? Have I got the right audio? Do I just start quantity over quality, throw enough shit at the wall situation? What would you focus on, or would you just say get started? Because I do feel there is an element of you should just take a little bit of pride in the quality, and especially audio. I find that people can watch things a little bit more if the audio's crisp. But what would you say to someone starting day one?
So unless you're going to spend thousands and you've got let's say you've got a few £100s to spend, but you've got an iPhone, don't worry about spending a penny. Shoot on your iPhone. These things that we've got in our pockets, mine's down there, are so incredible. We've got like 4 or 5 grand cameras, and a lot of the time we're still creating our content on iPhones. It's insane. The picture quality you get out of them is stunning. You just need to understand how to light properly, and you can do it just with natural lighting. Get a window, film in front of it, you're good to go. The sound quality is an interesting one because you can get incredible results from your iPhone. What matters is the type of room you record in. This room's perfect. You got nice sound absorbing panels up there. We're under carpet. Great.
I just thought they were panels. Me and Paul did. Not a clue.
So all of these panels absorb all the vibrations and all the echo that travels around the room. So that's why it sounds so crisp. You have these microphones, you lose the carpet and you lose the panels. Suddenly you've lost your quality. It's the surroundings that you put yourself in. So that tiny bit of education around it can fix it. You can also now, there's AI software, Adobe Podcast, if anyone's interested. It is insane. You can load in really terrible audio, and we do it all the time now, and it fixes it perfectly. You can have like building works going on in the backgrounds or a Hoover going off, and it will clean it up, and you would never know it was there in the first place.
Mate, I love that. So I'm going to ask Tom after this. So you reckon this carpet was planned? Do you reckon?
Oh, 100%. And
I love that. Even Tom's like, I'm not sure.
Well, if you've spent I've tried buying them for my studio. They're really expensive. If you've put enough thought to get these in, you've definitely had the thought to put a cheap carpet in, which also helps it.
I love it. We're never getting rid of you. We know it's here for a reason.
It's the small things in there.
Brandon, final words for anyone who is watching this thinking, I'm pumped to get started. I definitely want to do something with my life, whether it's on the side or go full time. Obviously, a lot of work's going to be needed. What would you just say as a final message to someone really looking to sort of, really go at it and step out into their, essentially what isn't their comfort zone?
Content is the coolest job in the world if you find that very specific thing you love making content about. And everyone has that thing inside of them that they're obsessed with doing, whether it's rock climbing or fishing or whatever that one thing that you love doing on the weekend or when you get time off work. More than anything, center your content around that love. Don't worry that you think no one else is out there that likes that small thing. If Francis Bourgeois can build a career off of train spotting, whatever that thing is that you love more than anything in the world, you can make a career off the back of it. Don't jump on trends because everyone else is doing it. Don't start doing dance videos because everyone else is doing it. Find the thing that makes you leap out of bed and make that your content creation journey.
Dude, I absolutely love it. Mate, I can't thank you enough because even for me, I'm constantly learning and I'm just trying to be honest, going more into a creator as well and trying to grow myself, I'm just like absorbing. So dude, I've taken huge amounts from it and I can't thank you enough. So
dude, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, pleasure, mate.
What
and
incredible podcast.
Loved it. And everyone who's watched so far, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you all soon.
Peace.